Hey, how's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for joining.
No problem.
Tell me, start from the beginning. You are have been traveling. Did you say you're in Japan right now?
I'm in Indonesia right now, in Bali.
Indonesia. Okay, so
Um,
you're in Japan, you're in Bali now.
yeah. So I was doing a program called Remote Year, which is sort of a travel logistics thing for people who want to work remotely. So they take care of like workspace and accommodations and all the travel in between countries. And they sort of set you up on this itinerary where you get to do sort of one country a month for 4 months, or you could do like a full year and do the whole globe. So I did 4 months in Asia. So I left Canada in the end of October, started off in Vietnam and then made my way to Thailand and then Bali and then Japan. And I decided to keep going with sort of this digital nomad lifestyle. So I have sort of relocated. I've been back in Bali for about a month now. I'm going back to Thailand for 2 weeks to do a visa run. And yeah, I'm kind of just making it up as I go along, and I've gotten very comfortable with the idea of not knowing where I'm living in a couple of weeks.
Wow,
Yeah,
super cool. Before we keep going, what is the name of this company that organizes it?
remote year.
Remote Year.
Yeah.
That
So
sounds like a really cool program.
it is really cool. So like I just did the 4 months. So I've been off the program for a couple of months now, or like
Uh-huh.
about a month and a half now, and just doing it on my own. But yeah, it's a really great way to, I don't know, like get sort of comfortable with the lifestyle. Like you can obviously do it on your own, but just
Mhm.
having like accommodations and workspace that has like 24/7 access and like good internet, like they sort of just clear the runway for you to just focus on work while you get to do all the travel stuff, and you're not dealing with like Airbnb logistics and flight logistics and all that stuff. Plus, you have the benefit of like you get to do it in a group of 20 people or 20 or more people, which is great. Just it's better than traveling alone. You get to sort of share the experience with 20 other people, which is what sort of sold me on it
Hmm.
back in the day.
Yeah, that sounds amazing on like multiple levels because there is a lot of logistics to organize when you want to live remotely and if you want to work while you're there, like there's so many more when it comes to like you said, the visas and making sure that there is good internet and having like a little space to work. And you're right, like it is really nice to have other people that you can connect with so you don't feel like you're totally alone in another country, but you have the option to do your own thing as well, I imagine too. So
Yeah,
sounds perfect.
yeah. So I definitely had a great time in the program, and yeah, I made a lot of great friends. And like my partner is someone who actually works for Remote Year and manages the city here in Indonesia. So yeah, it's been a life changing experience, and it's crazy just to sort of look out the window and register like I live in Indonesia now, which is in like the exact opposite side of the globe from where I was before, and I'm in the southern hemisphere now, and it's still like it still hasn't quite settled entirely yet, but
Yeah.
I'm having a great time. It was definitely like it definitely shook up my life in a way that I was looking for, and I'd actually signed up for it right before COVID started, so I was like all set to go on a full year, and then COVID dropped, and I've been waiting basically for 2.5 years to actually
Wow.
go out and do this. So it was nice to
Wow, a
finally,
long time coming then,
yeah,
holy.
yeah.
And you mentioned your partner is with you in Indonesia. Did you guys meet before or during this or
Yeah,
after?
no, we met during
During.
for
Okay, that's nice. A
yeah.
little romance to go with it too. That's
Yeah,
really
no,
nice.
yeah, we met here in Bali, and after like I went to Japan and like I actually went to Thailand first, and then I was really bored in Thailand because there's like burning season, so like it was really smoky outside, so you couldn't really go out. And I don't know, on a
Oh, okay.
whim, I just kind of was like, hey, I kind of miss hanging out with her, and came back to Bali, and now I live with her, and I've been here for a month and having a great time.
That's amazing. I love that. So, okay, I've got so many questions around this. How long have you been in Indonesia for? How's Bali? I heard it's amazing.
I've been back here for just over a month. I came back March 17th.
Hmm.
Bali is incredible. Like it is truly paradise. I think it's also uh, I think it definitely also brings to front a lot of the realities of things like over tourism. Like there is just an insane number of people here, and the infrastructure has a hard time supporting it. So just like traffic is really bad, and what's really accelerated that is the war in the Ukraine. There's a lot of Russians who have sort of flooded into Bali to sort of escape everything to do with that, and it's definitely sort of overwhelmed things in a way that was even more like it was bad, but now it's like really bad now, just in terms of the number of people flooding in and
Mm,
trying to fit into a relatively small space. And it raises a lot of questions like around like who gets to live in paradise, like are the locals actually benefiting from it? They're buying up a lot of the Russians are buying up like a lot of the land and the property, and yeah,
mm.
there's a lot of mixed feelings, and you're definitely at the forefronts like of a lot of geopolitics here. But it is an absolutely beautiful place, and the people here are absolutely lovely. And there's just something so like something I really just enjoy about like getting on a scooter and just like going across town with just all the greenery and just all the like little the warongs, like all the shops. I really like it here. It's very peaceful compared to a place like Toronto. Like I can
Yeah.
feel my blood pressure is much lower here.
Oh wow, that sounds so nice, and it sounds fun to ride a scooter through greenery like that. You paint a nice picture, makes me want to travel. So you're there for a month now. How long? So it was 4 months.
Mhm.
Did you say it was 4 locations, so like a month in each different
Four
country?
locations. So you tend to focus on like one city. So like the first month is like Vietnam, and you're based in Hanoi. They'll also
Okay.
set up little like weekend excursions that you can sign up for. So we did like a weekend trip up to Halong Bay, or you can do like a 4-day trip up to the Hagyang Loop. Like it's a bit more of an intense camping thing. So they also like give you sort of this massive optional itinerary of things you can sign up for based on your schedule and weekends and stuff. So you can get out of the cities a little bit. But yeah, it was Vietnam was Hanoi, and then Thailand was Chiang Mai, which is like a big digital nomad capital. Then we came
Mhm.
to Bali, which is another digital nomad capital, and then we went to Osaka. And in Osaka, people sometimes break off and do their own things. Like they'll plan their own trip up to Tokyo. I actually stayed in Osaka the whole time just because it's already like one of the biggest cities in the world, and I just wanted to go deep on it. And
Yeah, it's like
also, Japan's a bit expensive, so it's the last month of the trip, and that's when your like wallet really starts to hurt, and especially
yeah.
after you've been used to all these like fairly, these places where cost of living is much cheaper.
Right. Yeah, no, that makes sense. And there's probably, like you said, there's probably so much to see in Osaka alone. Like, you could do another trip one day just to Tokyo, I'm sure, and get to see lots there.
Yeah, like I definitely discovered a lot about how I like to travel, which is more like just sort of slow and like I kind of like going to, like finding my coffee place, finding like my bar, and just sort of going to those like on a regular basis, and going to the workspace and just having like a daily rhythm versus some other people, for them it was more like sort of vacation, like tourism time, like they had a checklist and they need to see like everything in Japan. But I had way more fun just like becoming known at the coffee place, becoming known at the bar, and just like hanging out with the bar staff and like the kitchen staff. And I've enjoyed that experience much more. It's a much more authentic local experience for me, just to sort of disappear into the city life.
Yeah, I'm the same. I don't really like the whole touristy thing. It's a little bit, it's kind of exhausting. So like when you get home from a trip, you feel so tired. It's nice to go on a trip and then just feel like you're still living a normal life, but it's just in a different place, and you get to see what it's really like to be there and see the local things rather than necessarily the touristy spots or like the particularly. It's fun to see like a little bit of that stuff, but it's also nice to just kind of have, like you
Yeah,
said, a nice coffee
yeah.
shop to go to
Yeah,
and
and I
stuff.
think that's kind of like an interesting dynamic of something like remote year, like they're especially like a 4 month program, because there's people like me who's like, I've sold everything, like I am living out of one backpack, like this is my life. And then there are people who are kind of, on an extended like work vacation, or just are retired, or in a bit more of a like a tourist mode, or like they got their Instagram checklist they want to do. And like there's nothing wrong with that. It's just sometimes I think it's a little like there's a small handful of people in the group who actually have to work, and everyone else is out partying all the time, and that I think creates a bit of a fear of missing out kind of dynamic. At least it did for me.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah,
I'd be like, I want to work, but I want to have fun.
which is why I ended
Yeah.
up leaving my job. Like I left my job about 2 weeks into the program, just because I felt like I also was trying to work like overlap with like North America hours. So like I was like starting work at like 9 p.m. and then I do meetings until like 2 in the morning, and I felt like I was just missing everything. Like I was missing all of the things that I had done this trip for. I was missing all the social dynamic. I was in meetings all the time. I was just stressed and burned out. So yeah,
Mm.
leaving my job was the final sort of burning down my life act, and it needed to happen, I think.
Wow. So are you going to be like a phoenix rising from the ashes now with
I
this
hope
new
so.
life?
I hope so. I hope so. Like I've really enjoyed just coming back to like just the pure indie game stuff that I used to do like 10 years ago. And I never, like, I kept trying to get back to it. Like, I know we collaborate on some stuff, and like, I tried to go after some funding for some stuff, but it never just, I think it's like just the cost of living in Toronto means you got to work, and then you
Yeah.
get addicted to the salary, and it becomes either have a work life balance or spend all of your nights working on stuff and trying to raise money. And I feel just now like that I don't have that cost of living pressure anymore. Like it's okay for me to just not make money for a little bit and just work
Mhm.
on a passion project. So yeah, I'm going back to just purely creative stuff, just focusing on one little indie thing that I don't need any funding for, and yeah, trying to trying to rise from the ashes, as you put it, back into my indie life.
This sounds amazing. Sounds like the dream, the actual living the dream, indie game development and traveling, being in paradise, and not having the crazy cost pressures of living in a major city or something like that. That's perfect.
Yeah, it's it really struck me like after moving in with my partner here, and she's just talking about what her rent is, which is like 20 million rupiah, which is basically like 2,000 Canadian for a whole year. So like
What
less
for a
than
year?
less than 1 month rent for me in Toronto gets a whole
Yeah,
year's rent here. And
that's
like, and this is like a
amazing.
2 bedroom place. Like we could go to like a 4 bedroom townhouse for like a little bit more than that. Like,
That's amazing. No
like
wonder everyone's flocking there. Like how? Yeah, I can see that being a major problem. Like so many people wanting to be there. I guess the unfortunate consequences that that cost of living will probably go up over time.
yeah, like I think the rents are starting to go up a little bit just because of, like I said, a lot of Russians and Ukrainians trying to move here to sort of escape the realities of the war.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, there's definitely a sort of a bubble, a little bit of a rent price bubble happening right now that we're
Hmm.
hoping to navigate because we're probably going to get a bigger place.
Wow,
But still,
that's amazing.
compared to Toronto, right? Like, yeah,
Yeah,
a year's
we
rent
can
in
barely
Toronto.
compare 1 month versus a
Yeah,
year.
yeah,
That's
because you also left Toronto, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So 2000, you can barely get a really bad place. Like at this point,
Even
it's so
just
expensive.
Yeah, even just like in the past, like when did I come back to Toronto? Like, I moved back to Toronto from Vancouver in like 2016, and yeah, my like 1 bedroom was like 1,400, and that's like I went back and looked actually a couple of days ago. It's like $2,600 now for like this tiny
Hmm.
little place, and
Yeah,
I just can't justify it.
I
I really
know.
can't.
I know. So you moved. You said you burned down your life in Toronto, and then your last thing was the job, leaving your job. What was the job that you were doing before game development?
Yeah, I was leading a sort of a. This is one thing I can't like talk too much about. Like this is I was leading sort of an experimental games team at sort of an esports betting company,
Okay.
and
Hmm.
I kind of got pulled in because I had some friends that I'd worked with before when I was focused on like UX product design and VR.
Hmm.
They'd sort of worked there. They wanted to start up their own games team. They wanted to do video game stuff, which was cool. And we tried some stuff. I built a little team there. We were just like the little research and development factory. Um, yeah, it was a lot of fun. I definitely learned a lot. Uh, I got to sort of work with some very talented people in a very sort of like intense environment. Like, oh, it's not just it's past the startup phase. Like, it's actually trying to operate at scale, and it's actually, I mean, I have ethical issues with sort of the gambling space, especially
Hmm.
now. But it is also kind of fascinating just to be in that space and just see like the amount of like testing you have to do on games to get them certified to operate. Like you really have to do a lot of work to sort of prove that you're not cheating. And
Mm.
we actually I spent a lot of time building our tooling to like figure out how to do that. And yeah, no, it was interesting work. It was fun to lead a team and sort of a money is no object kind of team and try out some stuff. But yeah, I think just sort of the pure art of indie games was calling, and I was kind of eager to get back to that, and out of sort of a high stress management role. that I was doing.
Yeah, no, high stress management role is definitely
Yeah.
difficult to manage when you're wanting to balance this traveling and doing things, and probably time zones as well, I imagine.
Yeah, the time zone stuff was really, yeah, was really hindering my ability to enjoy Vietnam.
Yeah.
So
So, how long ago did you leave that role?
that was November. So I think I
Okay, so
finished
it's been
up.
a little while.
Yeah,
And
so I,
that was partway through the 4 months of the remote year
yeah,
program?
that was in the first month. So I put in my notice about halfway through the first month. So by the time I arrived in Chiang Mai, my notice period was over. I was free and just started working on my own new stuff.
Cool. And so, did you like give a long runway, or like as soon as you got there, you're like, this is not working, and shortly after you put in the notice?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
gave it 2 weeks. We were hiring people, and I wanted, I never liked to burn bridges, and I wanted to make sure like my
Mhm.
team was, in a good place. So I did my best to sort of leave things in better shape than I found it. and
Cool.
and like I have an open door there if they ever need me to like come back and do stuff. We sort of have an arrangement that I can come do a couple hours and just work with the team here and there, which
Oh,
also
that's nice.
alleviated some of my financial stresses in terms of leaving my job and whatnot. So
So, okay, so you went from a remote job to doing your own indie development. Had you been planning this game that you're working on now before you left, or once you quit, you're like, okay, now I'm going to decide what to work on?
uh, I think it was pretty much as after I quit. Like I sort of just sat down with like a blank canvas, and I wanted to take a very sort of calculated shot, like at doing a new indie game. Like I think part of the trap that I frequently fall into, which is not uncommon, but just like I try to make games that are way too big, and a part of that is just also like the nature of funding in Canada. Like I sort of get brought into a situation where, okay, I've got all these amazing people I want to collaborate with, but now that means it needs to be like $1 million project, and it becomes a much harder sell. So I tried to do something very sort of simple, something I could build by myself and release in like 4 to 6 months. I tried to take a very calculated shot in terms of like the genre and the type of game that I wanted to do,
Hmm.
and yeah, and just something I could build myself with no funding. So I don't know. I sort of took a step back and tried to tick all those boxes and came up with something and pivoted a little bit a few times. Like originally, it was gonna at one point it was gonna be like okay, I want to make a game that's at least going to sell some copies. I'm going to make a little like cat tower builder thing and like procedurally have cats that like rate it or something. I don't know. So I just built this like procedural sort of like city or tower generator. And then I decided I wanted to work in something that was a little more at my own aesthetic. So then it became like this sort of generative cyberpunk city thing that I'm enjoying way more. And I think
Very
it's
cool.
still something that I don't know. It doesn't need to be a massive critical success, which is also very freeing. It's just like I just need to sell enough to just sort of fund like the next year of my life and until I can do the next thing, and that's way more like affordable to do now that I'm like living in Southeast Asia.
Right. Yeah, that's pretty great. But you're now focused on this new game. Does it have a name yet? Or are you sharing the name yet?
Uh, yeah, so this is yeah, Dystopica.
Dystopia. Okay, cool. And can you tell
Dystopica.
me?
Dystopica. I
Dystopica.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a very small game. It's not even a game is a bit of a weird way to describe it. I would call it more of like a toy. So it's sort of this little procedural cyberpunk city sandbox. All you're really doing is painting the landscape, and I'm just sort of procedurally generating tiles or like the art based on the tiles that you play. So it's meant to be more of a relaxing, just like fiddling thing. It's kind of just I'm drawing a lot of inspiration from stuff like Townscaper, and there's sort of another upcoming game like Tiny Glade. It's just building like little
Mhm.
dioramas. So I'm doing a very like it's no gameplay. It's just all about like a mood and a feeling and just sort of a relaxing, dark, ambient space to be in for like 20 to 30 minutes and make something and take a screenshot of it. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, I'm
Sounds fun.
trying to keep it as simple as possible and not let my crazy brain like, oh, but what if we did this procedural narrative thing? Like, nope, just a toy, just a toy.
Hmm.
Yeah,
That takes a lot to do that, to not jump on all the exciting ideas that come up from it.
yeah,
A lot of discipline. So,
yeah. Yeah.
What are the how do you like what is it that you're creating? Is it a 3D scene, a 2D scene, or is there a story to it or interactivity?
It is a 3D scene, so it is sort of a 3D volumetric tile thing. There's no story to it. It really is just it opens up on sort of this rolling fog vacuum, and you just start placing tiles. And as you place tiles, it like the tiles are I don't want to say randomly generated, but they are procedurally generated. So they use like their elevation and their neighboring tiles data to sort of figure out what they should be. And oh, should I put like a hollow board here? Can I put a helipad here? And it just sort of procedurally builds us out based on the tiles that you place. And basically, you sort of everyone gets sort of a unique little landscape that's their own, and they can take screenshots of it. So I'm building like a photo tool, and yeah, that's really all it is. Like I'm trying to keep it just a very minimal sort of ambient experience.
That sounds really cool. And yeah, I have played those other two games, or I haven't played them, but I have seen them. I played the Townscape. Is it?
Yeah, Townscaper.
Yeah, yeah. That it's really kind of just satisfying to just sit around and make a little town,
Yeah,
especially with the cool art and the nicely. How do I put it? Like the pieces change depending where they're going. Like it just feels really satisfying.
yeah. Like I really wanted to emulate the stuff that he was doing. I'm trying to remember his name. It's Oscar. I can't remember his last name, but he built a very interesting system for Townscaper called wave function collapse. So it actually is like deterministic in that like a set configuration of tiles will always produce the same result. Like every time you like enclose a bunch of tiles, it like it sprouts a garden inside. And
Hmm.
he's doing like a way more technical procedural generation thing. I'm not smart enough to do that. That's the problem. So mine's a little more crude and curated and bespoke in sort of a designery kind of way. Like, oh, if there's a tile here, do this kind of
Yeah,
logic.
I think you can achieve pretty powerful results without getting too complex on something like that. But it is interesting to hear the complex side. I'm have to look into that. And then the other one that you mentioned, I forget the name of it. It's like a castle builder, right?
Yeah, yeah. It seems it's very impressive. Like they're doing a lot of like dynamic like mesh generation. It looks like it's very slick. It's very cool. I can't wait to play around with that.
Mhm.
I think mine's a little more on the townscaper side and its simplicity in that you're just placing tiles rather than oh I want a road here and I want
Mhm.
a I want to have a wall here. Like it's
Yeah, it's a
actually
little more freeform with the castle one, right? You can just kind of draw a line wherever, which is pretty impressive and cool. But I don't think it's necessary. I think it's still fun to just do
yeah
like,
like
I mean, it's cool, but yeah, I don't think you have to have it be that
it's
um,
definitely a
open.
design question that I kind of wrestle with a little bit. Like I do wonder sometimes, and maybe this is just where like getting it in front of more people or putting it on like early access or something will help me figure it out. But like I can definitely see in sort of the sort of cyberpunk demographic on Steam, like the PC gamer demographic, are probably going to want to come in and look at this as like a city builder. Like, I want to put a hollow board there. I want a helipad here. I want like little floating cars here. Like, they're going to want a lot more control. They're going to want like city simulation. And yeah, I wrestle with that design question a lot. If the minimalism will be satisfying or if people are going to want more complexity, but then that becomes a way more complex. Now I'm building like a city builder, which is very
Mhm.
much against my sort of I want a small game that I can build by myself in 4 to 6 months, you know?
Yeah, I'm interesting to see how that will go when you start testing. It does. I do kind of like the idea that you get given a block, right? So depending on what you've placed, you get given a new block, and it's you don't know what it's going to be. You don't really choose. I think that that's kind of how do I put this? So I think if you have like a totally blank canvas,
Hmm.
deciding what to make is maybe fun the first time, but it feels, it's easy to run out of creativity and not really know what to do next. I think actually having a little bit of a limitation, like which block you have to place next, can actually help give some boundaries and limits that make it kind of like a little bit of a puzzle to your piece that you're making.
Yeah, like even
So,
Townscaper gives you like a little bit in that, you place in tiles, but you can choose like you have a palette. Like you can make buildings of like 10 different colors. So
mm,
you're still having there's still a bit of player agency in terms of like authoring something rather than just I'm randomly generating things based on like these binary, there's a tile here or there's not kind of algorithms. So I don't know, I've thought about like maybe breaking down, like instead of it being a palette of like colors, like maybe it's a palette like a very sort of minimal like SimCity kind of thing. Like your palette is you can place commercial tiles, residential tiles, or industrial tiles,
Hmm.
and there is still all the procedural generation, but at least like you're doing some kind of like zoning a little bit, or like you can build like towering like corporate buildings above like slummy sort of residential areas. Yeah.
Sounds really cool. I'm looking forward to checking it out. How far into it are you? How's the process of it going?
It's been sort of an on and off thing. Like I definitely, I'm not trying to burn myself out working on it. So it's been like, I don't know, not, it hasn't been full time. Like, especially during the remote year program, I was kind of doing like, okay, I'm going to work like this week and then I'm just going to enjoy the travel and the like going off on this weekend adventure for the next week and enjoying the social aspect of remote year. So I would say it's kind of been my part-time job up until the a week or two ago, and now I'm just getting back into it sort of full time, trying to ship it. So it's probably, I don't know, I'm kind of hoping it's probably about from a month or two out from early access, I think.
Oh, it's not bad at all. Especially, without. Sounds like you're not you haven't had to, crunch, which you're doing it at a pace that feels natural and well balanced.
So far it's starting to, the pressure's starting to mount now. Like it's been, I'm in my 6 month not working, and I'm definitely starting to feel the pain in my bank account where I need to see, I need, well, like I need to know if I'm just, if this is going to work and actually bring me income, or if I need to
Mhm.
move on to sort of a new idea or something
Right.
different,
Yeah. No, I
or
understand.
contract work. So again, I'm putting the pressure on myself just to do something, like release it in 6 months or so. Otherwise, I will just perfect and polish forever, which is a trap that I often fall into.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. That's super exciting. You'll be putting it on Steam, I imagine.
Yeah, I'll start on Steam and see where it goes from there.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
So, how has it been traveling while working? Do you find it's that you work better? Do you feel more creative when you're having a more balanced lifestyle?
I definitely feel more creative, especially when like you don't have that cost of living pressure anymore. And uh, yeah, like it definitely, just the changing landscapes is very inspiring. It can also, but it can be very inspiring, but from like a productivity standpoint, I feel it can also be very disruptive. Like it's hard to sometimes to sort of settle and get in a groove. And I think this is more true of like something like game development or like even programming in general, where it's not like the job isn't like a lot of context switching. Like, oh, I'm going to send an email, then I can chill for a bit, go to a different coffee shop, send another email, like do a meeting. Like, it's very hard to do things where like I need to sit and focus on like one thing for 8 hours. That I find a bit hard, and like it's only when I've been in a place for like a couple of weeks, then it starts to like all the cognitive, like, ooh, this is cool, what's that, ooh, look at that tree. Like once all that kind of fades away and the place becomes normal, then I can start being productive again. So it's a mixed bag. Inspiring, but productivity can take a bit of a hit, especially when you're in a new place for the first time and you want to go and do and see stuff, and like every little interaction with the world demands like a bit of your brain. Like I don't like I don't speak Thai and I need to figure out how to get food. Like that demands a certain part of your brain, but then you get used to it and it becomes like automated and you don't think about it, and now your brain is sort of free to focus on, I don't know, how a tile generates next to another tile.
Yeah. Totally different challenges.
Yeah, so I definitely like traveling while working. I like the inspiration, but think I'm still trying to figure out how to be like, I think I'm still struggling to be sort of a 9 to 5, Monday to Friday kind of person in terms of productivity. It's more come and go, where I'll have like super productive day and then I'll just have a down day where I don't do anything. Or maybe, maybe that's just like what work life balance is. I'm new to this concept, so who knows? Maybe this is the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah. It sounds really nice. It sounds like you are getting stuff done. You're taking time to do the things that make your life fulfilling. Like it sounds like a really great kind of approach to things. One that's really unusual too, unfortunately. Like it's from everything I've seen, it's always it tends to be either you work a 9 to 5 and then you have time to relax, you can take a break and go on a vacation, or if you're doing, if you're being entrepreneurial, whether it's indie development or something else, tends to be that you end up working more to get things done, and it's really hard to find time to just live your life and do things, and trying to find that way to do both is like it's really interesting to hear this lifestyle of yours.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still figuring it out, but it definitely feels radically different than my life in Toronto in a good way. Like everyone I knew in Toronto was just so busy all the time,
Mhm.
and making things happen socially was just becoming so difficult, especially now. Like my friends are having kids and whatnot, and yeah, if here it just feels like, hey, want to go just hang out and work at this co-working space for the afternoon and then go to the beach after. Like there's a lot more of like spontaneity in terms of like doing stuff, it feels here, and less everyone's less like I said, addicted to paying their cost of living.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Is it addiction? Is it necessity? It's somewhere in between, I think. It's like
Yeah.
you have to do it. You have to work hard in Toronto to be able to pay your
Yeah.
bills. So you
Yeah.
can't not do it, but then it can be addictive. Like, you know,
Yeah.
it's tricky.
Yeah. I haven't encountered any other game developers who are kind of, I mean, I haven't aggressively gone looking for them, but I haven't really encountered many game developers just sort of in the digital nomad like communities here. Like it's something fairly unique as far as I can tell. Like it's a lot of like content creators, it's a lot of like digital marketing people, software developers that have very cushy, well, yeah, software developers who don't really need to be in the room with working with people as much.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, not a lot of game developers, and I don't know if that's just because like game developers need a workstation that they need to lug around or what. But
Yeah, that's a good point. A lot of games do require like a setup that's difficult to travel with, so that could very well be part of it.
yeah,
But that's interesting. Do you feel like you've learned from these people who are kind of in different industries and you're spending time with them?
it was definitely refreshing. I think just like as someone who my job's been like UX and like VR tech and like game, like it's been working in tech a lot, and it's been very refreshing to just be around people who aren't in tech, like people who are like educators, people who are doing like more like positive social impact stuff, more like not for profit stuff. It's been very refreshing just to have that sort of change in worldviews. Um, and I don't know if that extends to games as well, because games is kind of in a weird space between like tech, but it's also art. So it kind of like it's in sort of the middle, but it's definitely been refreshing to get out of like the Toronto tech headspace and more out into the world and just seeing other ways of living and other ways of being and being around people who live in different industries. And you kind of realize just like a lot of people in tech have a very sort of like there's a bit of an echo chamber in tech in terms of things that actually matter, and it's been very refreshing for me for sure, and eye opening. And
Yeah.
I think it's better informed like the art side of what I do. Like maybe even that's why I'm focusing on building like a little relaxing town builder, is realizing like talking to teachers, and all these people like, oh right, like a lot of people don't play video games and have no idea what I do. Like
Right.
or like I can even like Fortnite, what's that? Like they don't follow it at all. And that's
Hmm.
it's probably a good thing. Well, not like I don't mean like not playing video games, but it's probably a good thing for me to talk to those people who don't live and breathe like the game development culture day in day out.
Yeah, once you get immersed in it and then you talk to somebody who's like doesn't even have a computer, like how do you not have a computer? How do you live?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
those all sound like great and major benefits to this lifestyle. What are the parts that are challenging? What are the things that have been a struggle, whether you knew it was going to be like that, or things even maybe that were surprising that like you're like, oh, I didn't know that. Ah, this is something I didn't realize I was going to have to deal with.
I mean, the biggest thing that I miss, it comes back to sort of the workstation thing, I think, where just I miss my monitors, like trying to condense everything to sort of Like I've kind of have this sort of hacky dual monitor setup because like I really
Mhm.
committed to just one backpack. I didn't want to check any luggage or anything. So trying to build a two monitor setup that fit in my bag along with all my clothes and everything took a bit of creativity. Like it kind of works, but I definitely miss just like the three monitor setup where I could just throw this over here, throw this over here, and be able to sort of see and reference things all at once. Like it, when everything's condensed into like a little 14-inch laptop, you definitely can only do, or you can only really look at one thing at a time when it comes to, especially game development. Like game development, like flipping back and forth between like Unity and Visual Studio, but even just within Unity, where like I want to have like my animation keyframes somewhere else, and like just condensing all those Unity panels to one view is just, I miss my monitors. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, that one, that doesn't seem like a terribly difficult obstacle to overcome. If you were going to stay somewhere, even if you know you're going to stay there for a month, you could always just, buy a monitor and then sell it after.
Yeah, I mean, I'm reaching that point now where like, okay, I'm actually staying. Like, I actually have like a home. Like, this is now my home in Bali, and I'm not running around traveling except when I do a visa run. So
Uh-huh.
I could probably get some monitors in here. So you're right. It's not a huge problem, but like in those 4 months during remote year when
Yeah.
we were traveling regularly and I was like packing and unpacking regularly, it was definitely well, I mean, saying it out loud now, it's definitely a first world problem.
I mean, it's still, it's totally like it's part of your day to day that you're probably constantly like annoyed with. So it
Yeah.
definitely is something worth mentioning. But I'm surprised that comes up before. Like, you have one backpack. How long can you go without doing laundry?
I can go probably about a month. So
Wow,
yeah,
you must be packing really efficiently.
yeah. So it's like this was like my big like year long project before I left for this thing. It was just yeah, building a very like tight minimalist like these are my four shirts and they're all like these black merino wool shirts because merino wools will like are really good at moisture wicking, so like you can wear them for a month straight without washing them, without them smelling. I mean, you wouldn't want to, like you sort of know that they're icky, but like no one else knows, and they're black so they don't show dirt. So it was a lot of that kind of stuff, like okay, lots of like just high quality technical fabrics, so I would only need to do
Hmm.
laundry worst case
What's
scenario like once a month, but I can do laundry whenever I want now. So
what was the material you said that's like that?
merino wool.
Merino wool, and it's
Yeah,
comfortable to wear as well. It's not like you're on the plane and on the traveling in hot places and it's
yeah. No,
cold.
they've been great in hot places just because like they are very light and cool, and like they just like wick all the sweat away, so you don't feel sweaty and gross. And yeah, I mean, apart from just general like Canadian blood acclimatizing to like 30 plus degree weather that's very humid, I've actually been very comfortable.
Okay, that's great. And then, so do you bring with you things like shampoo, soap, uh, like all of those like things, or do you just get it when you get to the next place?
Uh, it depends. Sometimes I'll get it when I get to the place, depending on how long I'll be there. But I do have like one bar of like of special soap, like Dr. Brenner's something something. But it's just like I can use it for laundry, I can use it for shampoo, and I can use it for body soap. I can use it for toothpaste apparently, but I'm not testing
Good
that.
for you.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
So
really interesting. Sounds like you found some cool things to really, really dig into that
yeah,
minimalist.
I went really deep into this website or like this like content creator called Pack Hacker, and they
Uh-huh.
have sort of this one backpack digital nomad setup, and I bought a lot of stuff from that list. I improvised my own versions of a couple things just because I needed. I travel with two laptops and stuff like that. But yeah, I got a lot of stuff from there. Like they just put together like a really tight one backpack kit that
Wait a minute. You have one backpack and two laptops?
yeah. Well,
Wow.
like laptop. So like the my main laptop is a 14-inch Asus, and then I also travel with a Surface Pro that acts as my second monitor, but also like
Okay.
as a tablet. Like it's also sort of my second laptop. So like if I'm going on a day trip or something, I don't want to bring like the chunkier like gaming laptop. I can just throw
Mhm.
that in my bag and I barely even notice it's there. And it's a Surface Pro, so I can draw on it, which is nice. And
That's perfect. Yeah, it's great for the things you're describing, especially like if you were taking a bus ride to get somewhere for a day trip. Like,
yeah,
what are you gonna do on the bus? You got a little tablet that just, like you said, a laptop, it's something you can draw on. Perfect.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you have something you can attach as a keyboard as well.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this is one of the things I kind of regret, but like I got like a fairly chunky like mechanical keyboard that is taking up way too much space and weight, and I don't think
Yeah.
it was worth it.
Yeah,
Like,
you can get some pretty thin
I,
keyboards if that's
yeah,
really
like I
cool.
didn't need a full like light up LED keyboard.
Didn't you though? If you're a game developer, you need to have some RGB.
I mean, I need people to know.
You what?
And people need to know how elite I am.
Exactly. Yeah. How else
Yeah.
are they going to know you're being? They're going to be like, I don't believe you. Oh, now that I see your keyboard,
But I
now
think
I understand.
the bigger problem has been like going and working all these co-working spaces where there's lots of people around, and I've got this clacky keyboard that I'm clearly like pissing off everybody around me. Uh, so I
Oh my god.
regret that a little bit, especially because I did end up adding a Nintendo Switch when I got to Japan, and now I kind of like need to get rid of something to make room for the Nintendo Switch. So I think I
Mm,
might try to find a slim keyboard and
that's a
send
good
this one
idea.
back to Canada. Yeah,
That's a good idea.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
So you're going to stick to a backpack even though you're kind of settling into Bali, or are you kind of going to expand now?
I'll probably.
I think your mic is fine to just leave down. It's picking up like movement sounds when you're
Oh,
holding
sorry.
it. That's okay.
Yeah,
Thank
sorry.
you.
I don't have my nice like arm mic from home anymore. But
Mm-hmm.
I got like there. Yes, I am thinking about some things. Like I was thinking, like, oh, should I finally get like a Yeti Blue or something, just to have meetings like this,
Mm-hmm.
or like getting monitors. But I don't know. I am starting to get some stuff now that I have a place I can at least leave it while I'm traveling, and like I still just have the one backpack kit. But I think the bigger issue is like everyone just made fun of me for wearing black all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like my entire wardrobe is black just so like it fits in that backpack, everything matches with everything. But
Mm-hmm.
now I'm like feeling that pressure like from my partner like to wear color. So
Stop being so goth. Stop being so emo. Like this isn't a phase, okay?
I mean it is kind of the digital nomad uniform, like the all black. But
Mm-hmm. I mean,
whatever.
it's good even when in normal, general, uh, your average lifestyle. It's nice to just have wear black. Everything matches.
Yeah, and I mean I listen to lots of like Nine Inch Nails, like it's my aesthetic. I'm making a super noir like cyberpunk city builder. Like this is the uniform.
Fits the brand. There we
Yeah,
go.
when I switch to back to doing the cat tower thing, I'll switch into like Hello Kitty gear and bright.
Pastels, yeah.
I'll go to Japan and just buy a ton of stuff.
Sounds perfect. So
Yeah,
I gotta ask you, this sounds like a great lifestyle, but it's hard to make that jump. I know you said you planned this 2 years before you actually got to do it, but like you really committed to it. You spent time all this time packing lightly and you got rid of everything.
yeah.
Um how did you even begin to like take that jump, take that leap?
Uh, I mean, I guess because of the situation where I like signed up to it, like before COVID, and then COVID happened. Like I kind of had 2.5 years to like think about it and plan it out and start working on it in slow increments, but it
Mhm.
definitely was like overwhelming at times, like definitely between like my full-time job and like trying to work on like side projects and like trying to sell everything. Like Facebook Marketplace is the most stressful place on earth when you're trying to sell like a lot of stuff. So I definitely had to do it incrementally just so I didn't go insane. And I think I sort of got in a nice rhythm where I could sell some stuff and then I'd go buy like part of my one bag travel kit and just have this sort of back and forth over like, I think I had like 6 or 7 months between when I decided, okay, I'm going to go on this Asia trip starting on this date and when I actually left for it. So I think just having that time, that runway, uh, let me sort of work through it in segments. And halfway through, like I got really comfortable with Facebook Marketplace, stopped trying to be nice to everyone and just telling people to piss off, and I'm not going to deal with them, and just
Yeah.
protecting sort of my work life balance a little bit more by hiring more people at work. Um, yeah, it was definitely stressful. Like I went through a lot of moments where just like, am I doing the right thing? Like, should I be getting rid of everything? Should I be doing this? Like, what? what am I even doing? um, but it all worked out. All those fears were allayed by the time I like just the second of like touchdown in Hanoi and like drove in from the airport. Like it felt so right. Just like Hanoi is such a beautiful, or like it just felt like a whole new place I'd never been before. Like just like sort of that old French architecture, and like it's all like overgrown, like the jungle kind of reclaiming it. It was just like it felt
Mm,
so exciting and different and new versus like my past life in Canada. That just like no, this is right. This is where I need to be.
mm,
Yeah, no, definitely no regrets. But yeah, it was very stressful just to come to the decision to go and do this thing because it's not cheap either. Like
yeah.
costs money to go and do this program, and I was lucky to be in a position to do that. I mean, lucky, but also like I've worked a lot over the past couple of years to sort of get to that position,
Hmm.
and yeah, it was not easy, but I got there somehow.
Well, it sounds, yeah. I'm so glad to hear that despite all of the stress of planning for it, as soon as you got started, it was like all of that stress is gone. It's funny how sometimes it takes so much like mental work to get to a point, but then once you do, it's like, oh yeah, if I had known it would be this good, I
Yeah,
wouldn't have been so stressed.
yeah.
What were the hardest things to get rid of?
Sorry.
What were the hardest things to like get
Oh,
rid of, like mentally, not like on Facebook Marketplace, but like you're like, gosh, I don't want to get rid of this. This one's a hard one.
I think it was just like a lot of books, a lot of like books and media and things like things that are like very heavy or like I paid like $200 for this textbook in university. Like it's really hard because like you can't sell that stuff. Like it's either you throw it out or
Mhm.
you keep it. But that was like
Mhm.
that would just be such a waste of like the limited storage space that I left stuff in.
Yeah.
So yeah, that books and media was definitely a tough one.
I, yeah. I've been trying to go more minimalist myself, not for the purposes of traveling, but just when I was living in small apartments, it's so overwhelming to have stuff, and I just wanted to get rid of stuff I wasn't using. And I listened to the Mary Kondo book,
Yeah,
The Changing Magic of Tidying Up, and I took efforts to try to downsize things, and my university books were also very difficult because like you said, like they contain all of that knowledge that you spent years like learning, and
hmm,
and this is like your reference to it, and they weren't cheap books, and you're right, you can't sell them. So I took them to one of those little like they're like, take a book, leave a book. um, I'm like, you know what, maybe somebody will come across this and they might be useful or whatever. And I put them in, and I later in the day I'm like, I regret it, I want them back. And I went and there was a bunch of them, and I went back to it and they were all gone. I think somebody took them
really.
to like resell them or something, but I was like, well, guess I gotta be more decisive. Decision's been made for me.
But do you still feel like lighter that like it's like now that it's a bit like removed from the moment, you feel lighter, like a burden's been removed?
I got to live in an apartment that was very small, and I was always very clean and orderly, which meant it was very comfortable and nice to live in. So it was the right choice. It was hard, and sometimes I am like, I wish I could reference some of these books because like it's kind of relevant to game development now, like physics, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, there's the educational books go out of date, and it's harder to find, but you can find a lot of that information online. And so I think like if I really did want to dig into linear algebra again or something, I can always go get another book. And I have, it means that I'm now like actually committing to doing that. It's not like I'm kind of half-assing it. I'm like, oh, I'll open the book and like leave it open and reference it
Yeah,
once every month. It's like I'm gonna spend the $200 to get the book, sit down, and go learn it. It's like it's gonna be, I think, a little bit more intentional when I
yeah,
do need them again. So
right.
I think it's well worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like the hardest thing for me was less like individual things. I think it was more just like the apartment as a whole. Like I sort of made this like dive into like, okay, I've been making salary for a couple of years. Like I can actually like I want to try and have like my dream apartment. So I moved into like a different building next door. It was like a 2 bedroom place. So like I could have like this office, like I could have an office space for the first time in my life, which is, I've been working from home for like 3 years by that point, and they're like working next to my bed. I'm like, I'm gonna have my perfect office and my perfect living room. It was a very like almost like Fight Club kind of thing. Just like I've got all this stuff, and I've spent all this time like building this perfect apartment and all these plants, and then I sort of just looked around like once it was all like assembled, and after I'd been there for a year, and just like I don't think I'm happy. Okay, burn it down, try again, move to Asia. So I think it was
Oh.
more just like reaching that plateau and sort of like looking around and like, no, the 24th floor like apartment with like the nice office and the balcony. Like I'm not finding joy in it. Like to go, I guess to go back to the Marie Kondo thing. Like I'm not finding joy in this, and there's some other like calling, and I think like if I hadn't done something like that before, like I had already sort of like sold off everything and moved to Vancouver after my undergrad to do my master's. So
Mhm.
I've already kind of done that, like get rid of everything, move across the country, and then I got rid of everything from Vancouver and like moved back to Toronto. So I've already done a few like get rid of everything moves. So
Mm.
I guess it wasn't too stressful. I think it was more just I think it was just like having this sort of negotiation with myself. Like, am I happy? Is this making me happy? And then coming to the realization that like Toronto wasn't making me happy, and like stuff, having lots of stuff and salary was not making me happy. And I mean, again, these are like first world problems, I guess, but and a lot of people would kill to be in that position. So I don't like want to like cast it like make that sound like it was like a light thing, but I
I
don't know. It
think
was
it's
definitely an exercise in trying to define what my happiness was.
I mean, I hear what you're saying, but I think it's also important for people to not feel like just because you have access to something that it's necessarily that other people want that it's necessarily going to make you happy, because that's not the reality of things.
Right.
And it's important to like acknowledge, these are things that a lot of people want, and just because I have them doesn't mean that they are right for me or that they're going to make somebody happy. So
Mhm.
it takes a lot, and and like you said, because a lot of people want them, it's hard to give that up because it can be scary. What, this is what I thought I was supposed to have or what I'm supposed to want. And
Yeah,
um
and it's a leap of faith too, right? Like because I'm getting rid of
mhm.
all this stuff and going off to Asia. Like if I like my fear was like if I get there and like I don't like this lifestyle is not for me, I can't immediately go. I can't just go back, right? Like everything is gone. Like I'd have to start again. So I think that was like where a lot of my anxiety came from. It was such a leap of faith into this uncertain future in a new part of the world that I'd never been to before, and at a very extreme form of travel that like I hadn't really encountered yet. Like I've done Iceland, like I stayed in Iceland for a month, but that's a little bit that's a little bit different than like Asia, where just everything is so radically different in day to day life.
Yeah.
But it worked out.
What were some of the cool things that you discovered in the various places you have been in Asia that were like, oh, that's such an interesting thing that they do here?
um, I think like the sorry, I'm trying to. Okay, so Hanoi, I ate the live beating heart of a cobra. So that was a whole experience where you go to this restaurant, they grab the live cobra, they kill it, they cut out the heart and put it in a shot glass with rice wine. So someone does that, so it's still beating in the shot glass. So yeah, I did that. But they also like drain the bile and like the blood, so you do shots of like the bile and the blood, and then they make this like 8 course meal out of the rest of the snake. So it was like soups and like dumplings and like all kinds of stuff. And it's an experience. It's definitely an experience. And I definitely developed a reputation within my like remote year group for being the one who's just like, yeah, give me the heart.
Sounds so violent.
Apparently, it's like a medicinal thing. Like it's some sort of male like virility and strength thing. Like
Hmm.
it's yeah.
Did you feel stronger after? Did you lift
I
a
don't
bus?
I don't think so. I think maybe some of the adrenaline of like you feel that heart like beat a little bit when it's going down.
Do
But
you chew it?
no, it's kind of like an oyster. You just kind of like
Okay.
shoot it. I mean, I guess you could chew it if you really wanted to. Uh,
Damn.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's
So everyone had this the one snake or
yeah.
a
We were
name
there were
for
like
it?
a group of like six of us, so it was just the one snake. So there's only like one heart.
What did it all taste like?
Like like crummy chicken. Like I mean,
What did
like
the heart taste like?
the heart just tastes like blood, so like very like gamey, but like not super gamey because it's mixed in with like the rice wine, so it kind of masks it a little bit. But yeah, I wouldn't say like it's not a taste experience that I'll remember forever. It's more of like a texture experience of a thing that's still pumping on its way down.
Wow, that
Yeah.
is definitely like a memorable experience. Amazing.
Yeah, so that was like one of my favorite things in Vietnam, in Chiang Mai. It's actually there's a lot of like so like a lot of people go to like Thailand, especially North Thailand, to like hang out with like elephants and stuff. But like there's a lot of that is very problematic in that the elephants aren't treated very well, and I sort of went in knowing that like this stuff was problematic, but remote year had actually found this like elephant freedom village thing that was like far in the north, and it's actually like sort of an open I guess reserve, and like you just hike with elephants. Like there's no like it's just their land and they come with you because they're excited because you have
Aw.
food. So we just got to go
Yeah.
on this like crazy hike with elephants through the jungle for like a couple of hours, and they're mingling with you. Like you're a little like that's a big elephant at first, but then you start to realize you can just like walk in and around them, and they're very sort of they know you have food and they won't hurt you.
That sounds
uh,
kind of
yeah,
way nicer than if you're interacting with it, but you know it's in bad conditions. It's kind of being forced to do it. I feel like it would feel more almost magical if they just came up to you naturally, and it would feel like way more
yeah, yeah.
special.
So they're
Yeah.
not trained with like violence or pain. They're just more
Yeah.
trained with food. So yeah, like the baby elephants will like come up and like tackle you and hug you. And
Mm.
yeah, that was
Oh,
really
that's
cool. It was
wonderful.
really cool.
Wow.
I'm
Sounds like
also
fun. It's a great
terrified that at
place.
some point I'm going to find out like no, actually like they beat the elephants and like you're doing it.
Yeah. They just say it's all done ethically.
Yeah,
I'm sure it's fine.
yeah. Let's see in Bali. I think Bali was more just like everyone sort of pictures Bali as like villas and just beautiful beaches and jungle. And I think a lot of people in our group struggled with Bali just because like the traffic is so intense and there's just so many people here, and like you can like the sidewalk will just end and you can fall into like raw sewage. Like it's which happened to someone in our group. Uh, but
What? I don't
I think
know.
it's definitely a place where you get confronted with like the realities of over tourism, and like technically like you're also here, so you're part of the problem. But it's
Yeah.
very like like I was saying earlier, like you really get confronted with the challenges of over tourism, but like who benefits from it, and like where do the locals fit into it, and what is traveling in a responsible, ethical way. Like I think Bali definitely confronts you with that. And then Japan is, I mean, Osaka, Japan is just it's Japan. Like, I mean, I love all the little bars that are like 5 stories up. Like, you just go into a random door and it's just one chill old dude in a whiskey bar, just like picking records off the shelf and playing them to like
Oh,
three people. Uh, yeah, I seriously considered staying in Japan forever.
yeah. I can imagine that being really enticing.
Yeah,
I almost like don't want to go because I'll be like, oh, it was so cool there. I don't know if I have the like I don't know if I want to be that far away from everything permanently. So I'm sure it'd be nice to visit regularly though, every so often. Go for a little visit. Check it
yeah,
out.
yeah. I mean, it's a 3 month tourist visa, so lots of time to hang out if you want to do like the full
Okay.
country for 3 months. Yeah. I mean,
Oh,
for Canadians, I don't want to put that out as like for everyone.
right. I didn't know we had that with Japan. That's good to know.
Yeah, and they also like sort of just they opened up very late. Like it was almost a question if my group was going to be able to go to Japan because they were still in very like COVID lockdown.
Yes, that's right. I'm glad
So,
you're able to.
but yeah, they're pretty much open up back now.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah,
Well, that is, yeah, I'm so happy to hear about all this cool stuff you're doing. That's really inspiring and
oh,
exciting for you.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad it's inspiring. It's been incredibly stressful and confusing and weird and wonderous, but I'm glad it's inspiring in some way.
Absolutely, absolutely. So your game, it's Dystopica?
Dystopica, yeah.
Dystopica, and people can probably expect to see that on Steam in the next month or so.
Yep, yeah. I'm hoping to. I'm trying to not talk about it too much as a part of like previously, like it was coming with the concept of a game, getting funding and everything, and I'm trying to just work on the game and not worry about marketing it or talking about it yet. But I'm
Yeah, it's
hoping
hard to do
about a month.
both. Yeah,
Yeah.
cool. And where can people find you if they want to learn more?
I am at voidswithin.com.
Voidswithin.com. Cool. Nice
Yeah,
name.
that's going to be the my new sort of like indie label for all my games and stuff.
I like it. It's
Yeah,
cool. Awesome. Okay. Well, thanks so much for joining. It's been a pleasure.
yeah, it's been great catching up.
All right. Thank you.
All right, see ya.